Hello, everyone. Good morning. How is Info Day so far for all of you? Good? Good? Yeah, so today, welcome to English's info session. I'm very happy to share with you a topic that is close to me, and it is on language and society through the lenses of variation, all right? And to start things off, I would like all of you to watch this video and try to pay attention to, let me know if you can tell me where this video was set based on how people use their language and the props basically in the set, all right? I just hope that the audio works. There we go. 想入非非 Shake shake 一杯果啤燒大兩杯米露丹索一個加壓多還有兩杯得哦一個米露冰可力冰果啤冰得冰哦不要忘了還有一杯板東還有一杯板東 Yeah 還有一杯板東 You ain't never seen nobody on my level 厲害 Haters be like 大啦啦 So I call them 比賽每個女孩 Acting like they sing side So I gotta sing mine Don't like me your girls still call me 靚仔 Lose the ground crew What can I say now Better have my money Cause I'm coming for my pay Wow hey blow Chillin' while I'm sippin' on that 果啤燒大 You thinking you funny 小偉學你切跨埋 Try me turn you haters to some hard fun They still saying shit 個眼錯你係 copy all long But I still got a generation that be jocking my style Anybody wanna rap 隆重我話打爆 All right, from that short clip, what can you tell me about the video? And where was this produced? Anyone want to give a guess? Yes? Right, for sure not. You think it's not in Hong Kong. All right, anyone wants to be more specific? Yes? Malaysia. Anyone else have a different answer? Yeah? Singapore. Anyone else? All right, so why? Why Malaysia? Why Singapore? Why not Hong Kong? Is there anything about the video that divulges this information about Malaysian, Singapore, or non-Hong Kong broadly? Yes? Uh-huh. Fukinwa, uh-huh. Kopi, yeah, all right. In Fukienese or Hokkien, right? What else? And we know that Hokkien is not really spoken dominantly in Hong Kong, so that could give a clue, right? What else? Aside from language use or the props in the video, anything else you think like gives clues to where this video was produced? Yeah.
Not where, but I think like the video was definitely trying to go for a more retro kind of vibe. Coloring the saturating, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it has a different stylistic kind of effect, right? All right. So the setting of this video is actually in Singapore. Okay, so congratulations. And how did we know that this is from Singapore? There are a lot of kind of cues, right, or clues that we can gather from the video. So we can say that it's probably Singaporean because it has, this whole video was set up in a hawker center, which is kind of like similar to the Tapaitong in Hong Kong, right? If you paid attention to the video, there are also references to local places and also local celebrities. And in terms of linguistic clues, right? I think you said there was use of Hokkien, right? And there's also very clear evidence of mixing of different Chinese languages and dialects, such as Mandarin. I also heard a little bit of Cantonese at the end, like Leng Zai, right? So I think it's kind of characteristic of the situation in Singapore if you're familiar with it. All right? So did you notice something? We really often make assumptions about people. Like when we look at them, or when we look at the actors in the video, we already have a clue about what this person is from, what he sounds like, what his attitudes are like, what his personality is like. And these assumptions are based on clues, right? It could be the clothing style, it could be the hairstyle, it could be how this person used gestures, or even like language use, right? Like some of you have pointed out.
All right, so how do we get from these clues to judgments or assumptions, right? So for example, you hear this person, John, and he says elevator instead of lift. And John also produces this word as butter instead of butter, right? So what can you say about this person, about John? Where was he from? Probably North American, right? Or America in general. It's because he has maybe associated the word elevator with Americanness, or the sound duh in butter, right? As also being American. So maybe his brain kind of like converges all of this evidence and says that, oh, maybe John is like 80% American, right? Or even 100% American. So how are we able to make these assumptions from clues in the first place? Right? Because all clues, right, whether it's linguistic or non-linguistic, like our outfit, like what I'm wearing right now, has some kind of meaning in it, right? Why people sometimes deliberately or even subconsciously deploy resources like clothing, language cues, or even their hairstyle to make a statement sometimes, right? And why? Because these resources have meaning. And meaning emerges from differences. This is the essence of variation, all right? Okay, so study of variation all started with this person, William Labov, who was very influential in sociolinguistic variation. And it is one of the core concepts of contemporary sociolinguistics. So this session, we'll be talking about sociolinguistics, but from a very particular perspective of variation. So this is what it is, right? If you hear about sociolinguistics or the study of language and society, it can be analyzed using variationist lenses. When you hear words like style, language change, the construction of identities, then we are probably talking about variation, is sociolinguistics. Okay, so our definition of sociolinguistics for this session will be the study of language in a social context. So what do we mean by that? So if you look at this is just simply the use of traditional characters, right? What do we mean by social context? If we put this use of traditional characters in a setting like Hong Kong, then we begin to kind of like see the links, right? Why is the use of traditional characters used in Hong Kong? Why not simplified characters? So this is kind of what sociolinguists are interested in, the why of why linguistic resources are deployed in certain social contexts. So some questions involving social contexts include, or in general social linguistics include, for example, how your social identity influences the way you speak and how others perceive your speech. Other questions include, in what ways do we change our speech in different situations? Have you ever noticed yourselves like changing the way you talk with your parents as opposed to your friends? Or when you're talking to a foreigner as opposed to a local Hong Konger? Do you notice that? Sometimes you might probably use Cantonese English code switching when you're talking to a local, but when you're talking to a foreigner, maybe from the US, you probably won't do that, right? So this is the why is one of the questions that sociolinguistics are interested in. Another question would be, what assumptions do people make about people and the way they talk? Because we know that okay, let's be honest. We pass judgments when people talk, right? We make secret evaluations in our head. Oh, this person sounds cool. Oh, this person sounds really rude. Even just by hearing one sentence, right? You actually have some implicit judgments going on. And the judgments are what sociolinguists are interested in as well. How do changes in language take hold and spread through communities? What are some trendy words right now? For those who are younger, what are some popular words in the Hong Kong society right now when you text or when you WhatsApp? Yeah, what kind of slang? What slang? Like what? What specifically? Anyone want to give a guess? Or slay, all right, yeah. So the question is, how do these terms like disperse throughout the community? How do other younger people also know how to use slay like why and how, right? How do these features disperse? If it's just one person using it, doesn't mean it's going to spread, right? But we are interested, like sociolinguists are interested in how and why these features spread through the community and how it became or how it becomes popular in the first place. All right, so these are questions in variationist sociolinguistics. Okay, so okay, this is a very long phrase, right? Variationist sociolinguistics. But what is it exactly? Okay, so in English grammar class in high school or secondary school, you're taught that there's only a right or wrong answer, right? So, for example, phrases like this: he on Tuesday the book borrowed would probably be treated as wrong. Yes, it sounds unnatural and therefore not acceptable in the eyes of your teacher. All right, but in variationist sociolinguistics, we actually focus more on actual trends that people use. If people do use these, this structure in day-to-day life, then it is part of language. So variationists believe that probabilistic patterns that are important and that they capture how language is actually used in the real world by different people. So let me give you an example to kind of like ground that concept. In Hong Kong, how do you say the word, this word? Can you say it? Huh? In English. Yeah. Okay, thing, right? Anyone else have alternative pronunciations for this? Or have you heard alternative pronunciations from other people, maybe older people? In Hong Kong, at least. Anyone? No? Yeah? Ting, yes, all right. Yeah, there's some, maybe, I've heard that pronunciation with some of my South Asian friends. They probably pronounce it as ting instead of thing. So we have thing, we have ting, what else? There's one pronunciation that's really salient in Hong Kong. Thing with an F, right? All right. So this is actually what people are interested, what variationist sociolinguists are interested in, because the idea that TH sound like thing can be produced in multiple ways. It can be pronounced as F, like thing. It can be produced as TH, thing. Or in some cases, it could also be pronounced as S, right? Sing, like recently, all right? And this is exactly the idea of variation, right? Multiple ways of saying the same thing. It doesn't only happen at the sound level, it could also happen at the word level. So when you see this in relation to the video we watched earlier, it can be produced in various ways. Coffee, cafe, kape, for example, Tagalog, and in kopi in Singlish, all right, or Singapore English. So it doesn't have to be the same language. So how do people analyze this variation? So rather than proposing absolute rules that apply 100% of the time, such as saying that, oh, the only standard way to say this is coffee and everything else is wrong, variationist sociolinguists propose probabilistic rules, basically measuring and counting gradient patterns that we see in real-world data. So, for example, in Hong Kong, some people will delete, right? For example, instead of saying just eat, they'll probably just say just eat, right? So instead of calling this random variation or chance by chance and giving up, we can actually measure exactly how often people delete their T's, right? Or any other variant. So for example, remember this example we had earlier? Instead of like saying that this happens like, this is the correct way to say it and this is the wrong way to say it, you'd actually say that there's an 80% chance of using this and there's only a 20% chance of saying this, all right? So, and then, of course, I remember what I said earlier, right? Sociolinguists are interested in the why, right? So why would people use this? And why would people, in what context would people use this, right? And sociolinguists would often rely on two different sets of factors, linguistic factors, like maybe the deletion of T at the end, like instead of just eat, is because of the consonant before the T. Or it could also be other social factors, like maybe people use just eat because it sounds more informal, and if you use just eat, it makes people feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're being too formal, right? It happens. So yeah, that's the concept of a variable, right? We have the idea of something, and then we have different ways of saying it, called the variance. So just to reiterate, right? So you have the idea of running, for example, and then you have two different ways of saying it. You could say run in, you could say running, and then you have the probabilities. And the next question is, why and what context would you use this? Does anyone want to try explaining why some people use run in instead of running? Yes, informal context, right? The formality of it matters. It could actually explain why some people would use this and not this. Oh, some people also found that this happens more at the end of the sentence, whereas this one is everywhere else. So key idea, sociolinguistics, it advocates an empirical, chance-based approach to linguistics that examines trends in naturally occurring data. And this approach forms the basis of variation in sociolinguistics as we know today. So if you're interested in variation in sociolinguistics, here are some questions that are still kind of like under investigation. What about society affects language use? Can one predict the social information of speakers with just language? Why or why not? If you're also interested in ideas of like speech community, social networks, and communities of practice, then you might also be interested in taking sociolinguistics with the English department. Attitudes and ideologies. Why do people think that certain variants, like I've heard some people say that Hong Kong English sounds broken or sounds weird, but I also hear some people say it's cool. Why do people have different attitudes towards Hong Kong English? How can we manipulate language to perform styles in different types of personae? When languages come together, like Cantonese and English, when they come together, what happens? Is it just always Cantonese English code switching, or can other consequences of contact happen? Does media consumption affect language use? When I watch television, for example, if people use that a certain way of use a certain feature or language, will you also adopt it in your own language? In what context? When? All right. And finally, we also are interested in how language is used in musical performance and style. All right. So let me just share with you some of the work that we've done, that I personally have done with undergraduate students in variation. So uptalk, for example, is anyone familiar with uptalk? Heard of uptalk? So for example, when I talk like this, and it sounds like I'm very suspicious of something, that kind of raise an intonation at the end of the sentence that I'm doing right now is uptalk. And that has often been talked about in sociolinguistic literature as something that is feminine. But the question is, does this apply in the Hong Kong context? And this is my work with undergraduate students here. And basically what we found was yes, all right? So, and it depends on whether you're talking with people of the same sex or gender or people of a different sex and gender. And that kind of varies depending on the social context. All right? There's another work we've done with Nang Kahin. And here our question is, how is multilingualism used in songs to construct localness? Is everyone familiar with her? Yes, right? So our work with Nang Kahin or Starsky, we analyzed how she used language in her different songs to construct localness in Hong Kong. There's also work done with Aiden and friends on different ways of Cantonese English code switching. Many people often assume there's only one way to code switch, but there are actually multiple ways to code switch in Hong Kong. And that varies individually. It also varies by age. It also varies by whether you're doing the code switching in person or on YouTube, for example. And more recently, on my work, personal work, I use Twitter to investigate how people vary their use of English in Hong Kong. And for example, I found that you know this variation between I's and I's. When you say the word summarize, it could end with an S. Sometimes it ends with a Z. Yes? And what I found was there's some kind of variation in terms of use of eyes in ice, such that the northernmost part of Hong Kong in red and the southernmost part of Hong Kong uses ice more than eyes, and everywhere else in Hong Kong uses eyes. So that's interesting, right? We don't expect this, but it actually happens. So why is studying variation important? Because it helps us understand when and how to use language in particular contexts. So knowledge of variation and variance, for example, associated with certain minority groups, could help increase intelligibility, right? If you know how they speak, then you won't be like too surprised when they say it, and you'll actually know the context in which their language is spoken. Another reason why variation is important is because it's not just about reality, it is reality, all right? There's a lot of variation in the world, and it just deserves to be investigated. Finally, it helps us understand the relationship between people and language, and helps us empower people who do not have that much power in the first place, all right? So, for example, LGBTQ community and queer language, and people using Twitter, as well as ethnic minority communities. So these are actually practical solutions to problems related to the real world. So that's essentially the scope of applied linguistics. It is a discipline that engages interdisciplinary resources to address real-world language problems. And my area of study falls under applied linguistics because I study sociolinguistics, and these are some of the courses that I've taught so far: gender and language, world Englishes, sociolinguistics at a grad level, and research methods in applied linguistics, which I am proposing for undergrads as well in the future. But that's the idea. So yeah, if you're interested in applied linguistics, it's not just sociolinguistics. Applied linguistics itself is very broad. It spans language education, language policy and planning, sociolinguistics, second language acquisition, classroom research, language testing and assessment, multilingualism, curriculum development, and more. And all of these are offered by our department if you're interested. And yeah, if you're interested, feel free to reach out to us, Michelle, and our student helpers. I will be more than glad to tell you more about our department. Okay, so be an applied English linguist and become a real world problem solver. Let's make a better place through language, all right?